Hello everyone. Today we have come back again to our next section of the chapter which is going on in class 9, that is the fundamental unit of life, cell. In this particular chapter we have studied so far about the introductory part, that what is meant by a cell, who discovered a cell, how was the invention of the microscope was done by the scientists, and how the cellular details was progressively made by these people. Then in the next section we have studied about the two important aspects of cell, that is the outer covering of a cell. See, in the previous section or the previous video I have told you that a cell is made up of three components. Perhaps you remember, that was your outer membrane, which comprises of cell wall and cell membrane. Of course, cell wall is only restricted to that of the plant cell, fungal cell, or that of the bacterial cell. But we have restricted our studies regarding cell wall only upon the plant cell, not about the bacterial cell or about the fungal cell. Then we had a detailed study of the cell membrane, its structure, its composition, then the various properties of the cell membrane, which is a very important part of this chapter. I hope you have understood that part well. Today what we are going to study is the next part of the cell, that is after the outer membrane, the next comes is the cytoplasm, and of course next to the cytoplasm are the cell organelles, and togetherly all these three things, that is your the outer membrane, the cytoplasm, and the various cell organelles makes a complete cell. A cell which is without a membrane, we cannot call that to be a living organism. As for example, virus has its DNA, virus has a few of its protein, but virus does not have a outer membrane, virus does not have its other organelles, neither does it have a cytoplasm. So we cannot call to be a virus a living organism until and unless it enters into a host cell, utilizes all the components of the host cell, and then it multiplies. Since it multiplies, so it has a characteristic of living organisms, or else when it is outside the body, it doesn't have the property at all to do the metabolic activities of its own. So virus as such cannot be considered to be a totally living organism. It is rather in the borderline of living and non-living. So let us come back to today's topic, that is our cytoplasm. In the cytoplasm we are going to study about what this cytoplasm looks like under the electron microscope, and what is its composition and what is its function. That is what we are going to study about this cytoplasm. Prior to going into the cytoplasm, I would once again like to remind you of a particular thing that we had done in our previous class, was about our cell wall, in which we had studied that the cell wall in case of plant cell shows a beautiful explanation of plasmolysis, in which the cell, when it is kept in a hypertonic solution, then the protoplast shrinks and it forms a rounded mass, and we call it to be a plasmolyzed cell. And the same plasmolyzed cell, if we put it into a hypotonic solution, again it imbibes water, it swells up, it takes up water from the surroundings because it is high concentration water, and this water, when it is taken up by the protoplasm, it swells and it puts a pressure on the cell wall. Cell wall gives opposite pressure, and it is because of the balance of these two pressures, wall pressure and the turgor pressure, that the plant cell maintains its rigidity or shape. Okay, now we will come to the cytoplasm, its composition and function. Now cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance found inside the cell. Now it's a jelly-like substance, but the jelly is throughout not same. Now why it is not same? The reason is because the outer part of the cytoplasm, which is called as your ectoplasm, E-C-T-O, okay, ectoplasm. Ectoplasm is slightly less dense compared to that of the inner cytoplasm, which is called endoplasm. Endo means inside and ecto means outside. So outer ectoplasm is less dense and inner endoplasm is more dense, and this solution which is present in the cytoplasm, this liquid is known as your cytosol, and it is this liquid which comprises of various things. The major things are the various biomolecules of with which our body is made up of, or any organism's body is made up of, and the main components of this includes your carbohydrates, it includes your amino acids, it includes your nucleic acids, and all these things is made up of what? It is made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and so many other things. So that is what this cytoplasm is all about. So if somebody asks you what is cytoplasm, cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance in which all other organelles are present inside a cell. It is having two regions. The inner region is called as your endoplasm and the outer region is known as your ectoplasm. And the solution or the liquid of the cytoplasm is known as your cytosol, and this cytosol is the place where the metabolic activities of a cell keeps on going. Okay, fine. Now let us see, the cytoplasm contains 90% of water. Okay, it comprises of, since it's a liquid, so liquid means water, so 90% of it is water. It contains some salts, mineral salts of course. It has sugar, that is the carbohydrates. It has amino acids because it has to produce proteins, because without proteins the cellular structure cannot be maintained and the organism as a whole cannot be maintained. Nucleotides, because it has a genetic material, so that genetic material is made up of what? It is made up of DNA, and DNA is made up of what? It is made up of nucleotides. So it has nucleotides. It has various vitamins inside it, and it has some dissolved gases also in it. It can have the dissolved gases like carbon dioxide or oxygen, etc. in it. Also, the cytoplasm contains some trace elements. Trace elements means the elements which are present in milligram, microgram sometimes. Now these elements includes your calcium, it includes your phosphorus, chlorine, sodium, potassium, etc. Okay, now the cytoplasm, as I was talking about the function of cytoplasm, it is a site of various cellular activities that the metabolic activities of the cell undertakes inside the cytoplasm. Perhaps you remember that inside the cell there is a mitochondria. Mitochondria is a site of cellular respiration. That means the Krebs cycle or the aerobic respiration takes place in the mitochondria. But this mitochondria's aerobic respiration which is taking place in the mitochondria, it does not start exactly in the beginning in the mitochondria. It first starts its origin in cytoplasm, and then when the compound, the glucose is broken down into a simple compound, this compound then enters into mitochondria where it is further oxidized completely to release the ATP molecules. Okay, it is living. Why it is living? Because various metabolic activities takes place there, and it is liquid, so it shows a kind of movement. So movement is a characteristic of being living, so that is why cytoplasm is living. And it is a storehouse of all the biomolecules. Biomolecules includes your carbohydrates, amino acids, nucleotides, etc. necessary for the survival of the cell and the organism as a whole. Here I would like to tell you about one more important thing which is called as your protoplasm. See, there is sometimes a confusion in the students that what is the difference between cytoplasm and protoplasm. Cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance present inside the cell in which the organelles are present, and protoplasm means all the organelles including the cytoplasm bounded by the cell membrane togetherly is known as protoplasm. So cytoplasm is a part of protoplasm. Okay, so protoplasm means what? Cytoplasm plus all the cell organelles bounded by the cell membrane. That is what is meant by that of your protoplasm. So this is the basic difference between that of the cytoplasm and that of the protoplasm. After cytoplasm, we will start now about our studies, that is the next topic, cell organelles. In case of cell organelles, there are a number of cell organelles in a cell which we will be gradually knowing, but today what we are going to study along with cytoplasm is nucleus, because nucleus is a deciding factor for a cell to be alive. When a cell is without a nucleus, in that case the lifespan of that cell is not enough. Perhaps you know the best example of this is our RBC. Human RBC, when it is young, it is having a nucleus in it, but as it matures, it loses its cell organelles, it loses its nucleus. What is the reason behind it is that if it will be having the nucleus or all other cell organelles, then the oxygen which it is carrying to the various cells of our body will be completely utilized by this, and very little oxygen finally is going to reach to our body cells, which should be the ultimate target of the RBC's work, isn't it? So the RBC, to avoid such kind of situation, is not having any nucleus at maturity. Now this nucleus which we are talking about so much, it was first found by a scientist The name of that scientist was your Robert Brown. Now, Robert Brown in 1831 first identified a darkly stained object inside a cell. He named it as nucleus. Later on, the studies were made further deeper into when the electron microscope was invented, and then people could find out what are the components of a nucleus. So let us see what are the components of nucleus. Let us have a closer view of this nucleus. The nucleus, as we have seen, that it is bounded by a nuclear membrane. So those organisms which have this nuclear membrane, their cell is having the nucleus which is bounded by this nuclear membrane, they will be called as your eukaryotic organisms, and those organisms in which this nuclear membrane is missing, so those are called the prokaryotic organisms. Like for example, bacteria is a prokaryotic organisms, we human beings are eukaryotic organisms. So this is the spherical structure of the nucleus with the nuclear membrane around it, which is discontinuous. These are the pores, nuclear pore, nucleolus, these thread-like structures, chromatin threads, and inside this jelly-like structure, nucleoplasm. So this is the overall view of the nucleus. Now we will be studying the parts of the nucleus in details. Now this is a diagrammatic representation of the nucleus. It is bounded by a double membrane structure which is not continuous. The places where it is having pores in it, these are called as your nuclear pore. What is the purpose of this nuclear pore? Exchange of material can take place between the nucleus and that of the cytoplasm. Nucleus prepares certain things which is required in the cytoplasm to be further processed or to be utilized by the cells. Like for example, you know about ribosomes, isn't it? Now the ribosome is produced inside the nucleus in this red color structure, spherical structure, which is called as your nucleolus. So nucleolus is a location inside the nucleus where the ribosomal subunits are formed. A ribosome is formed of two subunits. It's like a telephone and a receiver. So the subunits of the ribosomes are formed here in the nucleolus. They come out through this nuclear pore into the cytoplasm. When the cell requires to form protein, then the ribosomal subunits unite with each other, and then the protein translation becomes. Okay, so nucleolus is also known as ribosome factory. Like ribosome is known as protein factory of a cell, nucleolus is known as ribosomal factory of a cell. Okay. Now this is not membrane bound. Nucleolus may be inside a nucleus 1, sometimes it can be 2. So when it is 2, it is plural, it is called nucleoli. Okay, fine. Now inside this nucleus there is a dense liquid, just like cytoplasm is present inside a cell. So similarly inside the nucleus is a dense liquid. Now this liquid is called as your nucleoplasm. Now inside this nucleoplasm you can see various thread-like structures are there which are entangled inside. Now these thread-like structures are nothing but these are called chromatin threads. Now these are the chromatin threads which during the time of cell division, when the cell will divide, that time they will condense. That means they will become short, and when they will become short they will form a rod-like structure. Now how does this rod-like structure looks like under the microscope? It is somewhat like this, a central, circular rounded object, and it is having two arms like this. Okay, so such structure, this structure is now called as your chromosome. Now this structure will be called as your chromosome. Now this chromosome, I have drawn here red color circular object in the center. Now this structure is called as your centromere. Now this centromere holds the two arms of the chromosomes, and this is how the rod-shaped structure chromosome looks like under the microscope during the time of cell division. It is also the centromere's position, depending upon which you will see in your higher classes that the chromosomes are named differently. If it is exactly in the center, then it is called as your metacentric chromosome. If the centromere is slightly away from the center like this, so in that case one arm is long and another arm is short, so we call this to be the submetacentric chromosomes. Then in another case, if suppose the centromere is in such a manner that one arm is too long and another arm is too short, In that case, it is called as your acrocentric chromosomes. And the fourth kind of chromosome, depending upon the position of the centromere, is only it is having one arm, another arm is missing, or even if it is present, it will be so small, then it is called as your telocentric. These are all not in your NCERT, neither in your syllabus, so you don't have to bother about it. Just for your information, I am telling you that depending upon the centromere in a chromosome, chromosomes are named differently. 4 different types of chromosomes. When it is exactly in the center with 2 equal arms, it is called metacentric. When it is slightly away, submetacentric. When one arm is too long and another arm is too short, it is called acrocentric. When one arm is very long and another arm is missing, or even if it is present, it is very small, then we call that type to be the telocentric. Now the chromosomes are actually, the determining factor which decides an organism's heredity. That how will the organism look like when the organism will grow, what kind of hair the organism will have, what will be the color of the eyes, what will be the height, what will be the intelligence, whether the person is going to suffer from any kind of hereditary diseases or not, which age it will happen. Everything is written in the DNA, in our DNA, the chromosome which it is made up of. So chromosome, which is formed from the chromatin thread, is ultimately made up of 2 things. What are these 2 things? Chromosome is made up of your DNA. It is made up of DNA plus protein. Okay, it is made up of DNA and protein. Now this protein is called as your histone protein. Now DNA and protein togetherly, they are arranged in a systematic manner inside this chromatin threads, which during the time of cell division will condense to form a rod-like structure like this, and this will be called as your chromosome. Every organism cell is having the chromosomes which is diploid. That means diploid, we write it as 2n. Okay, diploid, we write it as 2n. So in case of human beings, what is the chromosome number? Our chromosome number is equals to 46. So 2n is equals to 46 in case of human beings. Now this 46, from this 46, how did it happen? Of course, it has happened that 23 was given by our father and 23 by mother. So it is n if we consider. What will be the gamete having? So gamete will be having 23 number of chromosomes. Sperms will be giving 23 number of chromosomes. Ovum will be having 23 number of chromosomes. So n plus n, when it will be n plus n, so 23 plus 23, it will be 46. So which is again a diploid number. Had it been like our cell is having 46 numbers, so our gamete is also having 46, then what would have happened? Imagine 46 from the sperm, 46 from the ovum. So 46 plus 46, how much it is becoming? It is 92, isn't it? But our chromosome number is 92? No, our chromosome number is not 92, it is 46. To maintain this constant chromosome number, definitely the gametes have to have half the number of chromosomes. Half the number of chromosomes means n. What will be n of 46? That means 46 divided by 2, that is 23. So 23 from the sperm, 23 from the ovum, togetherly when they will be fusing, they will have the 46 number of chromosomes. That is the diploid number of chromosomes. So in exam, if it comes, what is haploid number of chromosome? What is diploid number of chromosome? You have to write haploid means single set of chromosome. Okay, remember the definition is what? Single set of chromosome in an organism is called as your haploid chromosomes, and double set of chromosomes is known as the diploid set of chromosomes. Now this 46 is not for all organism. Don't think that 46 is for bacteria, 46 is for orange, 46 is for mango, 46 is for tiger. No, this 46 is only for human beings. Every organism has a fixed number of chromosomes. Like say for example onion. In case of onion, the chromosome number is how much? It is 16, 16. In case of onion 2n equals to 16. So if 2n is equals to 16, if somebody asks you what will be the gametes having the chromosome number in case of onion, so you will do what? 16 divided by 2. So 16 divided by 2 is becoming how much? 8. So in case of onion, n will be equals to how much? N will be equals to your 8. So gamete will be having 8. So likewise, every organism has its fixed chromosome number. Our case, it is 46. Other organisms, I have given you one example of onion. In this case, it is 16. So half of 16 in case of haploid set of chromosomes will be your 8 in case of onion. Okay, so this is about your different things which is present in case of your nucleus and its role in terms of, you know, organisms, that is your metabolism, as well as passing up of the characteristics from one generation to the next. Now let us see the function of the function of the nucleus as a whole. Number one, it controls the metabolic activities of a cell. So all the metabolic activities of a cell will be guided by the nucleus. Like in our body, whatever functions we are performing, it is controlled by which organ? It is controlled by brain, isn't it? So similarly, inside a cell, all the organelles, how they will function, when they will do what, all is decided by nucleus. So nucleus is sometimes known as brain of a cell. Okay, next is it transmits hereditary characters from one generation to the next. How does it do so? Because it is having chromosome, and chromosome is having DNA and protein. Now this DNA, some unit, some segment of DNA is known as your gene, which decides any character in an organism. Character means what? The color of the eyes, okay, shape of the nose, shape of the ear, complexion of a person, intelligence, disease, everything is decided by that of the genes present in the chromosomes. So that is why it carries the hereditary information from one generation to the next. And last but not the least, that it plays a central role in cellular reproduction. Cellular reproduction means what? When the cell will be formed, after that it will grow. When it will attain its maturity, then it has to divide, or else what will happen? The life will stop, isn't it? If the cell does not divide, does not pass on the information to the next generation, then the generation will stop, isn't it? So this vital work of cell division after the cell attains maturity is also under the supervision of that of nucleus. Okay, so these are the three final functions of your nucleus. This is the structure of the nucleus. See, every structure is not given in the book, so you have to sometimes see some, you know, other elements to know how does it looks like, isn't it? So it looks like this object. I have told you the role of all the things over here. This chromatin threads, it is very important. It attains the shape of chromosome during the time of cell division. What is the chromosome made up of? Chromosome is made up of DNA and protein. Okay, now the chromosomes, when it is present in double set, that is diploid, then we call it to be the diploid number of chromosomes. And when it is single set in gametes, like in sperms or in ovum, we call it as your haploid set. Haploid means N. Haploid means N. And every organism has a fixed number of chromosomes. In case of human beings, it is 46. 46 is not for all organisms. Okay, 46 is only for human beings. It is a basic, you know, fundamental characteristic of an organism that they will have a constant chromosome number. In case of human beings, it is 46. In case of onion, I have told you it is 16. So this is all about your nucleus and the function of the nucleus and the characteristics associated with it. These two things which I have taught you today about the cytoplasm and the nucleus, go through it very nicely, very slowly and thoroughly, and then we will take upon the other cell organelles in our next classes.